Hey everyone, just a few quick things before we get started. Don't forget to sign the attendance sheet. It's just real simple. Just ask you 2 questions. Kind of looks like this. But that's pretty much it. Please enjoy. Hope you all learned something.
Okay, hello everybody. So in today's video, we're going to be going over um, functions, both void and value returning. Okay. My office hours are up here. Y'all can feel free to stop by if you have any questions about this video. But let's get started. Okay. So the first question I have is, what is a function? So a function is some code segment outside main that performs a specific task. Okay? Some code, just like some code, I guess you don't need segment, some code outside main that performs a specific task. Okay? And so what's the next? And so like what you can do with functions is if you have something that needs to be done multiple times in different areas of your code, you can create a function, write the code that does the thing multiple times, and then call it multiple times in your function so you don't have to rewrite the same code. Okay? The next question I have is, what's the difference between a value returning function and a void function? So a value returning function returns a value, right? And a void function doesn't return anything. So like when you call a function, you can either choose to get input back from it or to get nothing from it. So a void function, you receive nothing, and a value returning function, you will receive a value if you call that function. Okay, next question I have is, what four things do you need when defining a function? So the first thing you're going to need is the function type, right? Is it void? If so, void. Or is it value returning? If so, int, double, or string, all that good stuff. I'm just going to put etc. Okay. The next one we could say is the function name. You got to give your function a name so you know what to call it. Okay. Next one we could say is the function parameters. Now, this one is semi-optional. Does it have parameters or does it not have parameters? But regardless, we need to put space between those. So like it's what goes in the parentheses. Okay? And last but not least, we have the body of the function, aka where all your code's gonna go. So without that, it's pointless to not have it. And then so the next question I have is, true or false, main is a function. So this one's actually going to be true. So you know how it says int main? Well, that's saying that main is an integer type function. And so you have int main, and so this is going to be the little function type. It's an int function. And then the two parentheses, that's where your parameter list goes, but there's nothing in there, right? And then you got your brackets, and then the code, that's going to be the body of the function. And then the return 0 that you have at the bottom, that's you returning an integer as a as an integer function. However, the way C++ works, if you don't have main, your code won't run. So main, it's called main for a reason. It's the main function, right? So I guess since you say main is a function, I guess you could say that this technically isn't right here. You could say it's technically not right, but for the most part, you always need main. So if you want other functions, they have to be outside main. You can't declare a function inside main. So I'm just going to leave that. But that was just to clarify. Okay. So the next question I have is, how do you call a function? So you call a function real simply. So you type the name of the function. So let's pretend like name of function, and then so we do name of function and then open and close parentheses, semicolon. And then so the parentheses are what indicate that it's a function in comparison to a variable. And you've already worked with quite a few functions. You've used the POW function before with 2 integers, or we've used the square root function. So these are all functions in C++ that you've been using and you just haven't really been aware of what they are. Okay? The next question I have is, where can we write the functions? Now, I mentioned earlier that they're outside of main, which kind of only leaves you with 2 options. We first got above main, and so our next one has to be below main. However, the catch with below main is you have to declare the function above main. Alright? So what this means is it's kind of just like using a variable, right? Once the computer runs main, it ends after main. It's not gonna keep checking for anything else, unless you declare your function above main, because it's saying like, oh, I know that this exists there, right? Because otherwise, if you run something in main and then it gets to a function title and you haven't declared that function, or you haven't declared that function, it doesn't know where to look for it. It's just like when you have a variable, right? You can't use a variable without declaring it first. But if you want to, you can write the whole function above main, and then you don't have to worry about declaring it and then writing the function. Okay. So the next question I have is, how do you declare a function, right? So if you want to write it above main, so let's say we have a function called int. Let's pretend we're doing square root, right? Square root, and then you could do that, and then a semicolon, and then that's all you really need. Oh, you could do a hello world. Let's do a hello world. Well, we could do a void, right? A void hello world. And so you just need the function type, the function name, parentheses, and a semicolon. Almost exactly like a variable, except you now have void data types and you need the parentheses. Alright, the next question is, how do we send data into a function? So it's going to be real simple. Let's say we're calling the function from main. Let's say we're doing square root, right? Well, you've been using this before, right? For square root, and you just write the variable or expression or a number that you want to take the square root of. And if it's for multiple ones, right, like POW, we could do POW, and then it's going to be the first variable, comma, the second variable. And so that's how you send data into the functions. Okay, and so it's very important that these data types match up with the data types listed in the parameter. Like if we were to go back up to this one and we were to have the square root one, int square root int x, it's very important that this variable is an integer, just like this, like it is stated in the parameter. Otherwise, it won't compile. Alright, next question is, when true or false, when you pass a variable into the function and the function alters the value, is the original variable changed? Oh, let's just take out this is. So like, it's saying the original variable is changed, okay? And this one's gonna be false. So whenever you just pass a variable into a function, the function does not alter the value of the original variable. For instance, if you were to pass this variable into x and you took the square root of x, variable is not now automatically whatever was done in here. If you want it to be like that, you have to set that automatically. Variable would still be the original number, while x would be something that was variable but has now been changed. Right? In a value returning function, how do you end the function? So just like I mentioned up in main 2, we got to have a return statement. Okay? So a return statement works by doing return and then and let's say it was an integer, or whatever, a double, but you need like a variable. We're just gonna put return x. And then x could be like an integer, a double, a string, or whatever. But you need the return statement, right? Because it's like you leave main, and now you're in the function, and then when you want to go back to function, you have to return to the function. And sometimes you will be, if it's a value returning function, you'll be taking something back with you from the function. And so the next question is, how do you call a value returning function? And it's like, oh wow, well, this is really similar to stuff we've been doing. So yeah, if you have a function like the square root function, that's not how you spell. That's not how you do square root. Yeah, square root. Or let's do pow. Pow x comma y. Okay, so if you have this and you just have a semicolon, well, that's great. You're calculating x raised to the y power, and you're doing absolutely nothing with it. So just like when you're changing a variable, you need to store the answer somewhere. The only occasion when you don't need to is when you're putting that calculation in place of a variable, right? If you would have cout x to the y power, that I don't know what that y is, just leave it alone. Is it'd probably just be y, wouldn't it? X to the y power. All right, let's just ignore what I just did there. Is pow x comma y, right? And in this case, you don't need to store it anywhere because you're only using it right here. But let's say you need to do something else to it. You need to like have this in multiple places. You could calculate it all at once, but it'd just be simpler to do something like result, or like, hold on, int result is equal to the pow xy. So just make sure that you're either using the value immediately, like right here, or you're storing it somewhere that you can use for later use, right? Let's say, yeah, okay, that's good. And the next question is, how does a Boolean function work? Anyways, so we know what a Boolean is, right? A Boolean says whether something is true or false. So, how does a Boolean function work? It works exactly like any other function, except you're going to do bool, and then like function name, and then whatever, maybe you're taking in an integer, an x, whatever. And then it's going to return, and this is not like the full written function. Do not write your functions like this. This is the declaration. Let's just do that. Let's just do that. Function declaration. And then we're just going to do a return statement. So these are just examples. These are not cohesive. This is not how you write a function. Anyways, so then return, and then so what you can do is you can either return true or 1, or you can return false or 0. And either way it will work. Or you can have a Boolean variable and return the Boolean variable. Okay, so a global variable is a variable that is declared outside of main and can be used anywhere within the program. So let's say, for example, a global variable, let's say you declare it before main, like integer x. You declare int x outside of main. So this int x can be used anywhere in your program. So like whether you've got functions, whether you've got, I don't know, you don't have functions. So remember how I talked about the scope of a variable and how typically it's with the nearest brackets, right? So if you define something in main, at the beginning of main, it's only going to be valid in main because of the bracket rule, bracket trick. Well, if you decide something outside of main, there are no brackets, so you can use it wherever you want, right? So if you declare a function in a variable in main, you can't use the same variable in a function unless you pass it through the parameters. But with the global one, you don't have to do that. How do you declare one? So it's just real simple. It's just like int int x equal to 5, whatever you want to do. Typically they use for something like a little more constant. Like you could do const int. Let's do const double. Let's do g. Right. Let's say we're trying to define gravity. 9.81, and then that way you can use that throughout your program. And what this const does is g can never be changed. G is always going to be equal to 9.81. If you try to change it, it won't let you. This is like, hey, this is a constant. You cannot change it. You also use it for like pi or something like that. Typically, it's not good to use global variables. If you do, it's typically for something constant like gravity or pi or something. Okay. Next question I have is, will a global or a local variable be dominant? So actually the local variable will be dominant here. Alright, so the next question I have is, are both programs correct? If so, what is the output? So you can see here we got a void hello function, a void world function, and a int main. So let's run through it. So we start off in main, goes down, sees hello. So you go up to hello, void hello, okay, cout hello. And then from this function, it calls the function world, okay? So then you would go down to here, and then you'd see out world, and because it's a void statement, we don't need any returns, so then you go back to main, or from world, you go back to hello, and then you'd go back to main since there's something there, and then you would return 0. So this one is actually going to be valid. You can call a function within another function. So this first function is going to, we don't want to do that. Okay. All right. So this first function is going to output hello space. Okay. So this first function is going to output hello world, right? Okay. And then let's go look at the second function. We got a void hello, and we got a void world, and we got main. So go down to main first, run main, right? Then hello, so we go up to hello, cout hello, exit hello because we're done, go back to main, go to world, run world, so call world, so we go to world, cout world, we're done with this void, so we go down, and then return 0. So this one, they're both going to print out hello world, and they are both valid. Let's put, and then the output is hello world. Okay. Right, and next up I got some coding exercise for us. I'm going to open up Online GDB. I'll be right back.